What's going on, guys? We're back. Another interview. This is 3 in a row.
Yeah.
This one is with a longtime friend.
Yeah.
At least a few years. We've had him on our podcast, Keto for Normies, twice. And yeah, so he has, right now, he's got 3 cookbooks. You
Well,
probably
it's
know.
Tristan from Primal
Yeah.
Edge Health. We haven't even told you who it is.
Tristan from Primal Edge Health. And he's actually like one of the YouTube channels I used to watch before we started our YouTube channel.
Yeah. Which
He
is
got me.
impressive.
Yeah, he got me motivated to starting our own. So they have some cookbooks you guys can check out.
Yeah.
I'll put links in the description. They got, this is the big one, I
This
think.
is their latest one, and it's really, really good.
Carnivore cookbook.
Yeah.
The Ultimate Guide to Low Carb Baking. And this is kind of like the recipes we make, except I would say more healthy, less...
Yeah. They're like all about nutrient
More
density, which
healthy.
I love.
Yeah.
And there's Jessica on the back. She's so cute. She does all the recipes.
The Ketogenic Edge Cookbook, which is like a lot of dinner recipes, some baking recipes and stuff too. And then also, guys, jointhecurve.com, Tristan put together a course for us too. Oh, there he is. I wasn't supposed to show him yet. One sec. He put together a course for us. It is on the importance of animal foods, which is what we're going to be talking a lot about today. It's like six lessons, and he goes pretty long. He can talk. Mans can talk.
Yeah.
And it comes with some food lists too. We put together lectins food list, oxalate foods list, some things you may want to avoid or at least be aware of, like how much you're consuming. And that's the intro. How's it going, Tristan?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure. It's always an honor to talk to you guys. One of my favorite like keto. I mean, you guys do even more than keto nowadays. Just kind of like vlog, lifestyle channels, and I always love catching up with you guys. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't influencer like the worst word ever?
It's the worst. It's the worst.
I
I like to
avoid it.
consider myself not an influencer, but more like a self-important e-celebrity. So I think I prefer to be called an e-celeb.
And
Or just a
assume
celebrity.
You're a public
Just call me
figure.
Celebrity Tristan.
Yeah. I assume you've asked your wife's boyfriend for permission to do the interview, right?
I did. I asked them, but I had to get special paperwork from the government to come into my living room. So I made sure to, I was outside watching to make sure none of my neighbors were outdoors and informing the authorities if I did see anybody getting sunshine. But now I've got some extra time that I'm taking off from snitching to join you guys.
Yeah, so I definitely want to talk about the thing you seem to be most passionate about is like growing your own food,
Yeah.
self-sustainability, disconnecting a little bit from the global economy, which is more important now than ever.
Yeah.
Obviously, when like food becomes a little bit scarce. We didn't even like have that much, but like it's at least on people's mind now where it's like you can't go to the grocery store, what do you do? So I want to get to that a little bit later, I think. But first off, I want to talk just mostly about, you talk a lot about the carnivore diet. You actually have a keto and carnivore collective
Group.
that you do. Is that monthly?
Yeah, it's our group coaching. So I mean, I've been doing coaching. That's kind of like my first passion, was helping people to organize their diet and their lifestyle to get the results that they want, right? I mean, we started out with the channel. There were very few people talking about keto when we first started out. You know, there was some good stuff getting put out by like Stephanie Person and she was the only one that was really putting stuff out when we first started.
Yeah.
So it was like, we jumped in a little bit after Stephanie was doing it, and we were one of the only people talking about it. Soon after you guys started putting out content, and a couple years later, Thomas DeLauer jumped in, and now Dr. Berg, and you've got a lot of information out there. And I found that over the years, people started getting more and more confused rather than like understanding what they should do. And rather than it being more straightforward to people, I think people got a little bit more overwhelmed with the sheer volume of confusing information, conflicted information out there. So what we did was try to focus on simple how-to, right? How to implement this. If you're trying to do keto for fat loss, it doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be confusing or scary. You don't need, a million different products to measure your blood and your breath and your pee. You don't have to pee on your fingers all day long to be in ketosis and to lose body fat. So that's how we started out. And, the coaching was, a main part of what I've been doing for the last 6 years. So what we ended up doing is we had kind of a high demand for private coaching, and I could only it came to a point where I said, I can't do more than one meeting per day, right, on Skype. Like I had so much else going on, and just my use of my time, it was, I found it very restricting to have so many meetings all the time. So what we were able to do is consolidate that into a group coaching experience and include community, because you had a lot of people who, you start a diet and you start changing your lifestyle and you have like nobody else around. You have nobody else around you who knows what you're doing or understands what you're doing. And so, combining that with the, the instructional lessons each week and doing live Q&As, we kind of created this way of doing coaching where people get more time with their coaches and they have an interactive community that is there to support them, which I find very, very helpful. I mean, especially now with a lot of the lockdowns and quarantines going on, I think a lot of people are, some people might feel a little bit cooped up in their home, and it's nice to have like-minded people that you're talking to. So yeah, that's how the Keto and Carnivore Collective came about. So the next one we're doing, if you're watching this live now, it'll be about 3 weeks from now we're starting. So you got about 2 weeks to sign up. And we also have a private forum, a private community that we promote as well, where we do 2 live coaching calls per month. So it's a more affordable way of getting coaching as well. I know some people are a little tight. People can't afford their bat soup these days because many people are, in a harsh economic situation. So if you're low on bat soup, that's a better way of getting coaching for some people. And so that's what we're focusing on now, is building the online community. Much like what you guys are doing, I think what you guys have done is great, and I'm honored to have been a small part of it, and to put that course out through Keto Connect. So
oh, he froze a little. What? Yep, we got a freeze. This is the Ecuadorian internet, I think. Oh, were you there? You're back.
I still hear you.
Okay, you're back. Yeah, you got all of that out pretty much. So yeah, so thanks so much for making the course for us. And as you were saying, focusing on just like simplicity, which I think when we got all day to sit around on the internet, like researching different sides, like we'll make a video, then the first comment's like, Dr. Burke says apple cider vinegar is really good for you. And it's like, it's just like a lot of back and forth, getting into the minutia. So what are like a couple big bullet points that are going to get you like 90% of the way towards living a healthy lifestyle, eating a healthy diet?
That's a good question. That's a great question, man. I'd say even if you're not trying to do keto, right? Everybody here is obviously interested in keto. It's the Keto Connect channel, right? And by the way, you guys are almost at 1 million subscribers, which is pretty amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Almost, I guess 900K will be the next.
Yeah. Uh-oh, wait up, you froze again. 1 sec.
No. Do you think they can...
Oh, there we are. Is it the internet? Is your internet a little slow sometimes down there?
I mean, yesterday I had a couple cutouts, but it's been good. I've got fiber optic, but I mean, it could be my internet, or it could be Zoom in general. I'm not sure.
All right, you're back.
Okay, sorry guys. One of the most important basic principles, or some of the most important basic principles that people can understand is, first of all, macronutrients, right? What are macros? You got protein, fat, carbohydrate. Protein, there are essential amino acids. Fat, there are essential fatty acids. We need those two. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate, right? Your body can create glucose from both fat and protein, which are required dietarily. So if you focus on getting sufficient protein and fat, you don't even really have to count macros to make significant beneficial changes in your life. You don't really have to get super into the nitty gritty and weigh and measure everything. But if you get sufficient protein and fat at the right time, right? Some basic principles about meal timing. If you're trying to lose body fat, which a lot of people do in keto are, the obesity rates, diabetes rates in the US skyrocketed since the introduction of a lot of these processed refined foods, processed seed oils, all these plant oils, and the high sugar intake combined with the plant oils can create a very, very inflammatory situation. So if you get enough protein and fat, you're going to be satiated. You're not going to have a need for all these other foods. And if you're focusing on nutrient-dense animal foods, which are the only essential foods, the only foods that contain all the essential vitamins, minerals, cofactors that we need are animal foods. And you can live exclusively off of animal foods with no supplementation at all. I'm not saying everybody needs to. I'm not saying everybody will want to, but you can. There have been many people that have long-term. Whereas if you try to live on all plant foods, you need heavy supplementation. And many people, even with proper supplementation, tend to run into issues. I'd say most people end up running into issues. And focusing on animal foods, focusing on getting sufficient protein and fat is going to get you I mean, for most people, it can get you 70% there towards your optimal human diet, which is going to look different for everyone, right? Some people, if you're heavy with athletics, right? If you're, doing a lot of sprinting, if you're doing, if you're a professional athlete, you're going to need more carbohydrates than if you're somebody who works on the computer and is sedentary and at home, who's not really going to need any carbohydrates. So majority of the foods that we should focus on should be nutrient-dense animal foods. And we like to teach people how to use the whole animal because it's more affordable. It's it's actually very enjoyable once you start including these foods. And it's been great watching you guys over the years. And I love every time I tune in to like what you guys are eating, there's more and more of like the cool, weird stuff that we always enjoy, right? So I see you guys eating more liver. I see you guys eating more, have you guys done kidney yet?
I bought one. I haven't eaten it yet.
We tried it a long time ago, didn't we?
Did we? I don't think we've ever tried it. People say it's like really strong, so I'm a little nervous. Yeah. Do you have like a cooking preparation that will make it taste good?
Our preferred way of preparing kidney, the easiest way, is we like to just boil it. And we used to soak it in brine first to remove some of the smell that people associate, like the ammonia smell. But if you check out what you're looking at right there, the Carnivore Cookbook, we do show you how to prepare kidneys. It's in the last section. And my favorite way, the most simple way of doing kidney is just straight boiled kidney. So we boil it for 8 minutes. And we're at altitude. We're about 5,000 foot elevation. But kidney can be so freaking good. It's really, really easy to prepare. And I think boiled kidney is my preferred way. It's just so simple. So, but you don't have to go straight for kidney. Liver. Oh, are we still here? You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. The kids love it. Do they eat boiled kidney as well?
Ari, we just put out a video the other day, how to prepare kidney. If you check out our YouTube channel, there's a video there. Ariana made this comment in the video. It was really cute. She was like, you know why it's called kidney? Because kids love it. So yeah, it's always been her favorite. She likes liver, but kidney is her favorite organ. So yeah, kidney's a good way to start. Heart is really nice. We like to make like meatballs with beef heart. And liver is great. There's different things you could do with liver. One of our favorite recipes is this organ meat pie that we make regularly. And that one's also in the Carnivore Cookbook, which you guys can get on the website. We've been meaning to make...
It's been interesting introducing foods to Theo because he doesn't have like the palate that we have being raised on like the standard American diet, where you think like Cinnamon Toast Crunch is in the realm of like what things should taste like.
That stuff does taste amazing though, right? That used to be like my favorite cereal.
Yeah, so like...
he prefers liver to apples. Like he hates apples.
My assumption, because I've heard a lot of people say like you have to give them vegetables before you give them fruits because they love fruits and they don't go back to vegetables.
I don't buy it.
He doesn't really even like fruits very much at all.
No, we've tried a ton of things and like liver, steak, and bone broth. Those are like the top 3.
Boom. Yeah, what about avocados? Some kids like the avocado.
He hates avocado.
The one thing he kind of liked that's plant food is I fermented sweet potato with like whey, homemade whey. Ooh. He liked that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's
so you guys get raw milk? You guys get some raw milk over there?
Yeah, so I wanted to get into that. We do get raw milk. And that's like the first thing. You read what's the book you read?
Just quickly, I have like a question because you put a little emphasis on timing as far as eating the proteins and fats. And I feel like a lot of us are confused about that. Me, like I want to lose body fat, but like does timing really matter or are you just talking strictly with like workouts and stuff?
Well, timing matters, but not for, all right. So if calories are equated, which, for most people, they're not counting calories every day, right? If calories are equated, timing's probably not going to make that much of a difference for a lot of people. But timing makes a big difference for hunger levels. That's what I find. So say I get a lot of clients who come to me and they're doing keto and they're like, why am I not losing weight? It's been 3 months. It's been 6 months. I haven't lost any body fat. And I'm hungry all the time. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I crash every day. And it's like, all right, well, what time are you eating? Well, I wait as long as I can till I'm so hungry to eat lunch. Yeah. And then I have lunch at like 12 or 1 o'clock. And then I'm hungry again at 3 o'clock and I want to take a nap right after my meal. And then I get hungry again at 7 o'clock in the evening, right? And it's like they can't get out of this cycle and they're trying to stick to their macros and it makes it hard. Very often, even just without changing macros much at all, you can manage hunger by simply eating before you get super hungry, right? If you're trying to lose fat, you don't want to wait till the point where you're starving hungry and where that meal will end up being bigger than it normally would be, right? So if you wait till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that meal might end up being 20% bigger because you're not going to have that regulator, that internal regulator, that hormonal regulator that's going to stop you from wanting to eat more. So very often what happens is people end up overdoing those meals that they've waited so long to eat. So it's like a simple strategy. If you've been intermittent fasting till 1 o'clock and you find yourself crashing after the meal, hungry in the evening, try splitting up into 2 meals a day. Forget the intermittent fasting window. There's no magic number where it's like, there you go, I got 16 hours. So I'm in the intermittent fasting window. I'm getting the deep autophagy and I'm superior to if I was not on an intermittent fasting regime. I think that people get confused with that. So a simple thing would be like, have breakfast a couple hours after waking up. Try having breakfast, if you wake up at 7 in the morning, try having breakfast by 9 or 10. Get that breakfast in and have it be a good sized meal, maybe 50 or even more percent of the total food intake for the day could be in the morning. And then have dinner at like 5 o'clock, right? So an early dinner, 5, 6 o'clock, an earlier breakfast, and you have a long fasting period in between those meals. You're not going to get that intermittent fasting window, which really it's not going to make as big of a difference as most people believe. And that's a really good way of effectively managing hunger. But that doesn't mean that everybody needs to do that meal timing, right? You might have somebody who's been doing 4 meals a day because they've been told that, more meals is better. Sometimes it's like splitting that up into less meals can be useful, go to 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day. It does depend on context, but simplest piece of advice that I think would help a lot of people who are trying to lose weight and have stalled: eat before you're starving hungry, and you're going to regulate your food intake better.
Yeah, I used to make that mistake big time back when we were living in Philadelphia. And I did because everyone usually recommends like the noon, break your fast around noon or like afternoon. And by that time you're like super hungry, and usually it's more than 20% additional calories. Usually you're doing like double, like twice as many calories. So yeah, and I like doing more of the fast at night. It's a little bit harder, but it also corrects the problem of like after dinner snacking, which a lot of people will just like after dinner Netflix, and then a couple hours later you're snacking. That's
the problem. Boredom eating hits people a lot. So if you get significant sized meals in that are timed strategically, meaning before you get super hungry, but you don't have to force it, right? You want to eat before you get starving hungry. And for a lot of people, I think 2 meals is going to be better than 1 meal. I think for most people, 2 meals will be better than 3 meals for fat loss. I tend to give clients 2 meals a day more often than 3 meals a day. Tell me when I'm back.
You're back.
Okay. I tend to go 2 meals a day more than 3. 1 meal a day, especially for women. If you're a nurse and you're working night shift, please don't eat 1 meal a day, right? If you have very poor sleep and you got a lot of adrenaline moving through you, if you're a firefighter, a nurse, anyone working night shifts, 1 meal a day can be harsh and can just make it a little bit more difficult on you.
What about caffeine? So like I don't sleep well. I have Theo. I'm nursing him in the night.
Come back.
Oh, wait. Is this gonna?
I'm back.
Okay.
Did you hear what I said at all?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you're good.
And real quick, we did get a $10 donation from AG001. Love your content. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think they were talking to me, Matt.
Yeah.
Could have been either.
For sure.
I wanted to touch on caffeine real quick. What's your take on caffeine? Because I feel like when you speak, it really resonates with me. Like you simplify it, you make it easy to understand, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I can do that. A lot of people are so like gung ho, like against caffeine, or they just go so hard with it, and I'm like, that's not healthy either. So where's the balance? Because I'm not sleeping well. I have Theo, and I'm nursing him, and I don't sleep that well. So how does caffeine play into that?
All right, so that's a really good question. I mean, just like with meal timing, caffeine timing is pretty important, right? I mean, caffeine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if you're not sleeping well, it might end up keeping you up late. If I drink caffeine at 5 in the evening, I'm not going to sleep that night because I barely ever drink caffeine. I don't think it's problematic inherently, but I think it can become problematic if you can't get out of bed without 3 cups of coffee. And if you can't live your day without having a couple liters of coffee and you feel like crap without it, there's probably something going on there, right? So I think you want to make sure you're not absolutely dependent on it, but I think there can be great benefits to coffee. I don't think it's necessarily inherently bad. I don't think it's the longevity superfood of all time. Like I don't like take this like David Wolf approach to it, right? But I think caffeine in its proper context can be good. Now, if you're not sleeping well and you have caffeine all throughout the day, sometimes a simple rule is like no caffeine after noon, right? Like just calming down. People who do have sleep issues, caffeine can patch holes in the system as far as your energy production goes. So there's not like, if you're not sleeping well and you need some energy in the morning, it's not inherently bad to have coffee. But if you stay in that cycle for so long and you become so dependent on it, I think it could become problematic. So what I like to say is, if you can't go one day without coffee, maybe you should start working on what's going on there, right? If you can't go one day without coffee and you're miserable without it, there's probably something going on. If you can go a day without coffee and you miss it a little bit, but you still get through your day, you can still do your stuff, probably not such a big issue. When you're like nursing a kid, I mean, the first 2 years are really hard as far as your sleep cycle goes. Yeah. You're built to handle it, right? Your body can handle it. You're hormonally built. I think a lot of women get so focused on fat loss after a pregnancy and they get so obsessed with it. I mean, I think it's probably a good thing that your body is holding on to more fat when you're nursing, because I mean, we go through feast famine cycles, right? A lot of people for all of history have not had access to food year round. So fat stores while you're nursing a child, probably a good idea to have some, right? You're not gonna be like a fitness bikini model level shredded. You're not fertile if you're that shredded, right? Like if you're losing your period, you're too lean as a woman. That's not healthy. And it's not, it shouldn't be. I think women seeking abs is detrimental to their health in general. So I won't coach like fitness competitors unless they're healing themselves afterwards. I refuse to do that. But yes, anyways, coffee, neutral. I'm neutral on coffee. In some situations, it's good to wean off of it, but sometimes you could do even more damage than good trying to get somebody off coffee while they're, having issues with health, energy production, sleep. So it's about timing and the amount. So I think like for you, probably good to have some coffee in the morning, probably not great to have it after, 1, 2 o'clock in the evening or in the afternoon. And naps can be helpful in your case, like, right? It's with Theo's laying down, like, why not lay down with him and take a nap? It's like, you shouldn't feel guilty about catching up on a sleep deficit if you're a mom and you get woken up 3 times a day for the baby to gnaw on your boobie. It's like, it's not easy on your body. So enjoy naps.
Yeah. No, I have.
Then, like, aside from diet, what are the biggest lifestyle changes you can make that will have an impact on your health? I know a big one I noticed, and I think you recommend, is obviously sunlight, which is hard to get, especially if you're like working in an office all day. But that one seems to that one like cascades into all aspects of life. It helps you get better sleep, helps you eat better. Just like, it's pretty much a cure-all in my mind.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's people that go so far with it that they say, oh, if you get your light cycles right, food doesn't even matter, right? Like I interviewed a couple times a few years ago, Jack Cruz. I disagree with him on that. I think food intake definitely matters, and light is crucial, right? Your exposure to light. A lot of people are wearing the blue blocker glasses these days during the day. If they're working on a computer, wearing blue blockers in the evening to allow your body to produce more melatonin. Light is a nutrient. There's a lot of us forget. Shift workers have higher rates of obesity, insulin resistance, cancers, right? Night shift work is harsh on the body. Any moms out there understand that you're basically, if you're a mom and you're nursing a kid, you're kind of like a night shift worker. And during those times, like, you get groggy, your sense of time starts to get all messed up. Like, the days all run into one. And the night shift workers, nurses who are working 18-hour shifts sometimes and are doing nights for a week and then days, it's hard on the body. And proper light exposure at the right time, just like proper meal timing, can be one of the biggest drivers of health, of proper sleep, right? Because without proper sleep, you're not going to be creating powerful oxidant melatonin, right? Melatonin has got to be produced endogenously in your body. If you're not getting sunshine, your body's not going to be producing vitamin D out of cholesterol, right? Remember, your body turns cholesterol, sulfated cholesterol, into vitamin D when you get out in the sun at the right time of day. So very, very important. And vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's a hormone. It's a hormone that's involved in many other physiological processes. And it's more than just vitamin D as well. When you go out in the natural light and you get certain frequencies of red and near infrared, you're going to vasodilate, right? So you're going to get better circulation. You're also going to release nitric oxide, which is actually very good. It helps you vasodilate more and helps you to produce energy without ATP. So natural light, sunlight, helps you produce energy without more caloric intake. So it's light is crucial. Getting in the sun.
What's a good sun protocol? Say we just want to get like the biggest bang for our buck. We don't have the luxury of like working outside and spending a lot of time out there.
AM sunlight, eat breakfast on your porch, open the window when you're working, right? Little things like that. Even the glass, like if you wear glasses, take off your glasses when you're outside, right? Natural light on your eyes. If you can get 20 minutes AM sunlight before 10 a.m., 20 minutes around noon, right? You don't want to fry yourself, right? If you're in like Louisiana and the sun's going to burn you in 15 minutes, don't burn yourself, right? But, let yourself get flushed, right? You want to get a little bit flushed. You want to start feeling it. You will know when you've had enough. When you start to burn, you start to feel it. Don't burn yourself, but get that sun when you can in the morning once for 20 or so minutes. The morning sun is going to burn you much less than the midday sun, but that midday sun's the UVB and the UVA, that UVB is going to help you produce vitamin D, right? And then in the evening, watch the sunset, right? Like just watch the sunset wherever you're at. Just sit outside, put the screens away, put the TV, like turn off the Netflix, turn off the TV if you can, watch the sunset, whether that be from your apartment out the window because you're locked down in London and you can't go outside. That's fine. Just open up your window, sit on the porch, watch the sun go down, watch those light hues change, and you'll sleep better. Right. So I think that's a really good thing. And then also, if you got a fireplace, you're really lucky because not a lot of people have that. So it's a real blessing if you got a fireplace. But natural light at night is real good too. Like if you can't sleep, the real simple thing is like draw a bath, nice hot bath, and read by candlelight in the bathtub rather than watching Netflix.
So what about, I got some of these lights because I don't it's like hard to read by candlelight, so it's all flickering. I've tried it. So I got these light bulbs that say they don't have blue light. Are those like reasonable or is that fake?
Well, they might not have blue light, but the frequencies do matter. I'm going to turn on the light so you guys can see. This thing is so bright. It's the middle of the day right now, but you'll probably still be able to see. Let's see. Can you see that? No, you can't see the red here.
Yeah, I forget which one I got. I'm trying to find it on Amazon here. Oh.
So this is a red light therapy device, right? This is like a therapeutic dose of red light. You can see how bright it is. Basically, it like blinds you to everything else. In the evening, you expose yourself to specific frequencies of light around 630 nanometers up to 630 to 660. That frequency range is visible red light. And that's what you see right there. And then there's near infrared in there as well, which you can't really see. You can see a little bit of it. Some people can see more than others, but it's in the barely visible and invisible near infrared spectrum. And that's actually therapeutic light. That will help you produce melatonin. That's going to decrease your inflammation, and it's going to actually help you to create more collagen. So a lot of people use it for skin health. You can find, there's small devices. I want people to start making this is just a normal LED and this little $2 traffic wand thing that goes over the top of it. I read books with this, that's dirt cheap. That red light therapy device costs about $700 to $1,000, but that's one of the best investments we've made as far as, health devices to have around the house too. So, that's from a company called Joovv, Joovv. If you go to joovv.com/primal edge health, you can see like some more information on that. But yeah, red light therapy is another thing that people could look into if they want to really get deep into it. But just like a simple like red LED light is going to be better than those ones that don't have as much blue light, but they're still like kind of yellow. Even an incandescent bulb will keep you awake. But normal incandescent bulbs are going to be better. The old school incandescent bulbs, like the Thomas Edison style things with a little filament, that's going to be better than an LED or a fluorescent white blue light. So lighting your house, that can be real helpful as well. But most people aren't ready to go there. Blacking out your windows. And then, yeah, it's just whatever you're able to do. Somebody mentioned, there you go, Iris. Iris is a program that you can install on your computer, and it will remove the blue light, especially in sleep mode. Sleep mode on Iris is pretty crazy. It's like whole thing starts to look like that LED light panel that I just showed you. So yeah, there's a lot that you can do and play around with, and there's some really cool experts out there. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe we need to get one of them on, because my light I use is pretty bright. I feel like I'm lying to myself. It's just giving me all the spectrum still.
If you feel it, you know it, because when you lay in front of that Juve, you lay in front of one of those red light therapy devices, when you stare at a computer for so long, or you play video games for all night, and your eyes are just like your head hurts all around here, and you feel the inflammation, you feel the strain, you stare into that light, and it does the opposite. You feel it loosening up, vasodilating everything around. And they've done studies where they were using those lights for premature babies who are having issues with their eyes. I think this was in Australia. Because we had a neighbor who had a premature baby born at 2 months, miracle baby.
Whoa.
Yeah, she's born at 2 months, and now she's well past her original due date, and she's growing well. Aww. And they were using one of these lights for a little bit for her, because some of these premature babies get issues with their iris and the veins, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they've done studies on these, and they really benefit the eyes a lot. And you feel it, like you stare into it and you feel it relaxing you, and you produce more melatonin, and it actually helps with deep cellular respiration and mitochondrial health, which is what keto does too, as you guys know, right? Keto helps your mitochondria function better. So there are a bunch of brands out there that make these types of lights. But you're looking for specific frequencies, near infrared and red frequencies, very, very beneficial. And there's knockoff Chinese companies that make weird ones that are cheaper. I haven't tried any of those. There's a lot of options out there. People can even make their own. Like if you buy the LEDs, you can make your own setup. But I'm hoping there's a company that will eventually make, with a single LED, a reading light that just uses those frequencies of red light, because that would be great for me. But nobody's made one yet, as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay, I gotta look into this stuff, because
we have our sauna. Is that red light in there?
It has a really little red light thing.
But is that actually, because it changes colors?
It changes colors.
Nice.
But does it have to be red light?
Well, what they claim is that different
right?
colors help with different things.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's what they claim.
Okay.
There are devices. Some of these you want to look at a near infrared sauna if you want to be getting those types of benefits. Near infrared rather than
I think we have full spectrum.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. What's the company?
Clear Light.
Okay, I have to look into it. There's so many new things out there, and the one thing is we don't have access to a lot of this stuff because we live in Ecuador, so we have to import anything, and so I don't even bother looking into some of these products. It's like I'm not going to be able to afford that and get it out here. But there's like Sauna Space makes something. I haven't seen or tried theirs. And some people just build them themselves. Like you could even use a reptile light. They use these lights for chickens, for reptiles, like these frequencies of light. So you get those big bulbs. It's like 100-watt bulb. Philips even makes some that are red and near infrared. Yeah. It depends on how hard you want to go with it. The more, the better. Like they make these 6 panels, three on the bottom and then 3 on the top, and it gets your whole body in 10 minutes. Right? It's a full body. They make like Superman pods that are like a friggin' they're tanning beds, and they're outfitted with red and near infrared light. So you just lay it in. It's like these UFC fighters and NFL players, they use these, and these companies sell them for like 20 grand for these crazy outfitted things. But there's a lot of options out there in the market, and hopefully people start making more affordable ones. Yeah. Hopefully the economy gets going and people can make some really good ones.
Yeah, I need to look into this more, because I've always looked at it and I'm like, I don't know. It seems you've looked into it a bunch, I assume, right?
Yeah. Now I'm gonna go to like your Primal Edge Health Juve.
I'm
just gonna get one.
We've gone to it before, and I think we like almost pulled the trigger, but then I was like, yeah, it's really expensive.
But now we will, and we're helping out a friend.
There you go. Yeah, check. All right, so if you just to shill for my own affiliate link there, it's joovv.com, juve.com/Primal Edge Health, and there's information there about the devices that they sell. There's a cool company called EMR Tech. I haven't tried theirs, but they make some that are similarly priced and seem to be just as good quality as Juve. There's other options out there, but of course, I got to throw out the affiliate link because, got to maybe get a little bit of, get a little bit back from Juve there for promoting their product. But I really enjoy it, and it's something that we use every night. And our kids like it too, and animals love it. We had a dog. The dog that you guys used to see in our old videos, his name was Duke. He died a year and a half ago, but he had all these tumors in his mouth and he was really in bad shape. And we thought we were going to have to put him down. When we first got the Juve, we started laying him in front of it. We put it on this bed sideways and he laid in front of it. Within 3 days of using that, the tumors in his mouth disappeared. I don't know if his immune system just got boosted up from it or if it was just because we were, crying and praying that he wouldn't die, but it seemed to have an immediate effect. Tumors went away in his mouth and he lived a whole year after that before we ended up having to put him down. He got real skinny at the end, but yeah, he started playing again after that for several months, and a whole year of life was added to him after we started using the red light therapy, and along with also, just other things.
Better food and stuff, I'm sure. Yeah.
He always had a good diet. I think it was genetic. He had to get like double vaccinated because we sent him to Ecuador. So he had like extra maybe toxic load in his body. And I think his parents were maybe, I don't know. Imagine feeding kids nothing but Cheerios for 4 generations and expecting them to be healthy. That's what we're doing with animals.
Yeah.
I remember thinking when we got Julius, they just take the dog 2 weeks old and they give him to humans. And then I was watching videos on the internet of like a mother like disciplining her puppies, and I was like, Julius never got any of that. Like, he's a totally different dog. He's growing up in like this crazy circumstance of just like being raised by humans. Yeah. And then we like get mad when he pees on the floor and stuff. And I'm like, of course he's gonna pee on the floor. His mom's not here to bark at him and like get mad.
Right, and he wants your attention. It's just like you're not paying attention to him. He pees on the floor. Suddenly you're touching him. You're looking at him. You're moving him. It's like a game.
Yeah. So the most pressing matter right now is obviously what's going on in the world, and obviously, like, no one's really had, from what I've heard, food shortages. Like, you can still go to the grocery store, buy your groceries, but it's not that far from like the realm of possibility that could just be cut off, and there's like a mad dash for the grocery store. Obviously, don't panic, guys, anything like that. But I'm just saying, it puts that thought in your head. Of like, preparing for the future. Obviously, if that happens, we're the first to go. You're gonna last a little while longer. You can keep preaching the message. But,
you guys will be out here trying to eat us. You guys are gonna be running from the cities trying to cannibalize our babies. I gotta eat them babies. Go eat the rural babies. Yeah, this is something that's concerned us for a while. As part of why we moved to where we live in the rural area. From talking to food producers in the U.S., we realized how difficult it was for people to raise quality animal foods and get them to the market and sell them directly to their customer. The meatpacking industry has been consolidated in the big 4. You've got Cargill, JBS, Tyson Foods, dominating the meatpacking industry, and they've cut out the small family farmer to a great extent. Government subsidies for corn, soy, and wheat also have created this massive bloated system where people are not able to make a living producing food for their local communities in many places, and it's definitely created a very fragile food system and distribution network. What we're seeing now in the UK, in Europe in general, is they're not able to get workers out there to actually harvest crops. So what I'm seeing is reports of potential harvests just rotting in the fields because there's not workers that are allowed to be mobilized to actually harvest these foods. We could be seeing major disruptions in the food supply. I hope it's not. I hope it doesn't go that way. But with the way that this is being managed, with lockdowns, with full quarantines of entire countries, we are likely to see disruptions in the food supply. So how can we protect ourselves against this? One thing is forming relationships with local producers, right? Buying your food locally. Another thing, if you can go a step further, having some of your own food, right? Producing some of your own food. You can have chicken. A lot of, you know what, I shared this on the stream I did yesterday. Baby little chicks have sold out all across the US because so many people are realizing I got to get my own egg production going. I want to have my own quality food that I'm producing here, or I might not be able to buy these foods soon, right? Because there's restrictions of movements everywhere. Like here, there's a 2 p.m. curfew every single day where we live. Like we're under like really intense lockdown. 2 p.m. curfew. You can only drive your car 2 days a week, according to your license plate number. I mean, we're seeing really strict draconian measures being taken, and it makes it difficult for people to get food. It makes it difficult for people to produce food. So people are thinking, what the heck am I doing? Why do I not even know where my food comes from? People who've never thought about this before are like, dang, like I want to produce my own food, or like I want to move to the country and have some space, right? People are getting quarantined in their apartments. They're like, damn, this sucks. I wish I lived somewhere with like a few acres where I didn't even have to see my neighbors. I could go outside naked in the sun right now, right? The people are starting to think a little bit differently about their food, about their living situation and their food security. So I think it's going to be very important. And I think a lot of people are going to be moving towards, after these quarantines and lockdowns pass, which they better, because we're also seeing draconian laws being passed, like in the UK. They're taking away people's ability and right to control what goes in their body, to decide that they want to go outside or move around. I think people really need to watch government response to this and make sure that we're not being having a lot of our rights revoked long term. But once this passes, many people are going to be looking to produce their own food and have more security around their food. So simple things like having your own chickens is going to be the first step for a lot of people. Another thing people can look into doing, there's this guy, Greg Judy. I'm a big fan of Greg Judy on YouTube. He talks about being able to actually produce your own beef using rented land, right? So this guy, Greg Judy, teaches people how to lease land long-term. You get a long-term lease on some land and run cattle in a regenerative way, to where you're producing your own food and making money off of it. He's able to buy land that he was once leasing, and people are even giving him lifetime leases after they see how he's transforming the land and improving it so much with proper grazing techniques. So that's another thing we can do, right? People are concerned with the environmental impact of food production. How can we produce our food and have beneficial impact on the environment? How can we produce our own food and feed our families and communities? It's going to mean local food production, small scale homesteading, small scale agriculture, and it's going to be moving away from the industrial agriculture model that requires government subsidies, that requires heavy shipping costs, that requires loads of chemical input that's destructive to the soil and our guts and the animals. And yeah, I think this is something a lot of people are going to look into. So homesteading is something we've been very, very interested in for the last decade. And, we're finally able to live in our own house. I got food growing outside right now because it's raining. So I've got grass growing that we can't eat, that our animals can eat. So we've got cows. We have 2 milk cows, one that's producing right now, and then a calf who's a bull that eventually will either eat or use them for breeding stock and then eat later. We've got some chickens. We've got 12 sheep. We just had 2 lambs born this week. And yeah, I mean, we started slowly, started with chickens, then got some cows, then got the sheep. And I don't know, I like to just jump into things. It's a steep learning curve sometimes, but to me, I get so much joy out of it. Like, I love helping people. I love coaching. I love being able to communicate with people all over the world and help them with their diet, their health, and their lifestyle. But I also really I would love to just be able to hang out with sheep and cows all day and just milk cows. And yeah, so to me, it's very fulfilling. You get outside and you have the security of having at least part of your food coming from your own hands, coming from your own labor, coming from your own work. And I think it's real fun. So
Yeah, Matt has just recently started taking over the yard. So he pruned the rose bushes. He started cutting down a tree that's not supposed to be cut down. So now we have a half-cut tree. But he's like, "You live, you learn." And I was like, "No, this tree was beautiful."
Because we have some trees that look exactly the same that you have to cut every season.
Yeah.
So I made one mistake.
But he always talks about when he comes in from like a hard day of work, you'll catch him say it like at least 20 times. He's like, "It feels good to take care of your yard." I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard you say it."
Well, what prompted all this is I'm doing this book challenge where I want to just read a bunch of books this year, basically. And I read this book by John Seymour. Have you ever read any of his books?
No. The name sounds familiar, but maybe I'm thinking of Jane Seymour, who was one of the wives of King Henry VIII.
No. You probably have heard of him because his claim to fame is like, I think it's something, The Guide to Self-Sustainability. But the book I read was called The Fat of the Land, not to be confused with the other book of the same title. But and it was just like such a revolution to me. Like he basically just described how he bought a property, which he didn't even really have to pay for. It was like a rundown farmhouse he got for like 20 British pounds. It's in England somewhere. And he slowly, over the course of like 5-7 years, started living 100% self-sustainability, no need for cash. Everything was barter. Like he would have his neighbors fix his roof in exchange for like some ducks or something. And it's made me realize, I guess, like
there's beauty in that.
There's a lot of beauty in that. And even like what I used to look at mowing the grass and like taking care, it's a waste of time.
So silly, right? Lawns. Like, why do we have lawns? And I mean, why are you gonna mow your grass? Why not just put a goat on it? Right? Like you like share a goat with 5 of your neighbors if you only have a small amount, right? You could rotational graze those like properly with intensive grazing. You have more animals on less land, produce more food, and put more carbon and build deep carbon-rich black soil using animals. And it's so fulfilling in so many ways. Like I think a lot of people are going to want to move towards that. Their economic interests, global economic interests, who don't want us doing this, who want us dependent. They want you to eat kibble that they're manufacturing and fortifying with nutrients they call it. But this is a way that people can feed their families and can take back control over their health, right? And if you are raising good quality animals, you know what you're eating, you know where it comes from, and you appreciate it, right? And having access to good food, I think, is important.
I think it's the hard day's work thing too. Is like it gives you purpose. You're not just sitting around all day doing nothing.
The boredom snacking doesn't even come into play.
Yeah, like John Seymour's not snacking out of boredom. He's like hitting, as soon as his head hits the pillow, he's sleeping a solid 8 hours. You know, like there's
exactly. And you eat 2 times a day. If you're working like outdoors, you're eating twice a day, right? You don't have time. You don't even have the desire, and you don't have to worry about working out because you're moving all day.
Yeah.
So there's the downsides to it are none, in my opinion. The upsides to it are manifold, and I think that moving towards homesteading, even if you just have a small yard, you can have chickens. And I think people are going to want to move to more rural areas where they have more space, and I think we should. I don't know. We've been promoting this for a while, and I think it's great that more people are getting interested in this. We've got a lot of people in our private forum, our Primal Edge Health membership section, our membership site. Which if you go to primaledgehealth.com/membership, shill for it there, you can check it out. We've got a lot of people who are doing homesteading and who've been doing this longer than we have, there's different things you can do in different areas. There's different things you can do in different states, in different climates, but we can all produce at least some of our food locally. And if you don't want to or can't, at least support local farmers. So you can check out like eatwild.com. That's a good resource for people who are looking to connect with local producers and get locally produced beef, eggs, raw dairy, stuff like that. But my favorite part of the day is milking the cow, and our daughter loves bringing the sheep in. I gotta move the sheep once a day at this point, and I'm working on getting an electric fencing set up to where I can set it up to where I'll move the fence once every 2 days. And it's just whatever you're ready for, go for it, right? Now's the time, right? Get some chicks if you can find some near you right now.
And I was going to say, if you're not ready for that, which we're not yet, I have to prove myself at least for a couple of years taking care of our lawn here.
Yeah.
But once we do that, I do want to get some animals and stuff. But a step down is like farmers markets. We go to the farmers markets most weekends. We haven't been lately, obviously. Finding a local farm, which we use, realmilk.org, I think it is. Eat Wild
Yes.
is another good website. So we get farm deliveries. And
But
then
even a local farm we get our stuff from, they're running low.
they're running a little low, but like a bunch of my neighbors even would ask me, like they know that we do keto, YouTube, and health stuff, and they're like, "Where do you get food from? Like,
Yeah.
is there any? Do you have any good sources?" So that's at least one step of sort of connecting better. And then Mega goes to like a local
Grocery
store. They get shipments from different farms, and even without really trying, like we're not that social.
No.
We don't like chat people up and like chat the farmers up like I'm sure you would do. But they get to know you, and there's like it's fun forming relationships, and they like tell you what's in stock, like what's coming and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's maybe a
That's
step
great.
down.
You get better prices. If you go directly to
Yeah.
the source, you're going to get a better price than if it's got to go through one of the big meat packers. Look, if you're buying your beef directly, and you can do group buys too, or you buy half a cow, quarter of a cow, you're going to get better prices than if you were to go to even Costco when you're buying it in bulk like that. So having a chest freezer can be real good. It's going to last longer too because it hasn't been sitting on shelves for so long. And fresh local food. This is the way we build resilient food, a resilient food production system. Not shipping ingredients halfway around the world. Not buying bananas from Ecuador in the winter when you live in Canada. This is not going to be viable. It already isn't viable, right? And exports and imports in a lot of places have stopped. And what you're doing by supporting your local farmers, it's more than just like getting a good price or having like a cool relationship, being able to chat it up with your farms. You're supporting a system and a network that is going to help people be resilient in times of disruptions in the supply chain. So I think that's great. It's a shame that a lot of these local farms now, maybe they're running low on stock, but there are also a lot of producers because all the restaurants are closed, and that was the main, nice cat, that was the main source of income for a lot of these farmers is selling to restaurants.
Yeah.
So you can get into, there's a lot of these people who are saying, like Sean Baker put up a post the other day. There was somebody who was selling like bison, and they were selling to restaurants, and the restaurants aren't buying because they're not selling food anymore. The restaurants are all closed. They're all shut down and locked down. So a lot of these small businesses are struggling. A lot of them are being crushed. And, of course, who makes out big? Amazon, Walmart, big tech, biotech, Monsanto, Cargill, all these big producers, they're protected against this stuff because the government's going to print money and hand it out to them. They're getting the contracts anyway. So these people are getting screwed. A lot of these ranchers are really getting screwed. And Sean Baker put a post up of this guy who was like unable to sell to restaurants anymore. And he went from having no one to sell to selling most of the stock that he had and having a huge demand just from people contacting him directly. So fortunately and unfortunately, what's going on right now is disrupting the food supply chain to a certain extent. Hopefully we don't see massive food shortages in areas. Rural areas are going to see it actually first because the stores, they prioritize stocking up in the cities. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be important for a lot of people to have good local food production nearby. And hopefully this lights a fire under some people's behinds and gets them thinking about this. And if you've been interested in it, there are a lot of resources out there to help you get started. Like there's some great channels like Justin Rhodes. I don't know, you guys seen Justin Rhodes?
Yeah, we had him on the podcast.
We chatted with him.
Oh, nice. I love that dude. I never talked to him, but like love that guy's channel. There's him, Greg Judy, Alan Savory Institute. A lot of these people out there putting out good information on how to homestead, how to grow your own food. And it's not that hard. It's not that difficult. And it's very fulfilling.
I hate to say it, but it seems like it's kind of a losing battle at this point. Obviously, you got to keep fighting, but like, just like the global food supply and like the more powerful companies get, the more they can make the prices lower and lower. And it's hard to tell someone who has almost no money to begin with not to go to Walmart and just get the best deal they can get.
Yeah.
And it's also not that like of a distant future. Meat taxes are being talked about now, and like we in Georgia here, we can't buy raw milk. We have to buy it labeled as for pets, and that's most of the U.S. So it seems like, I don't know, it's hard for me to see a scenario where the good guys win almost. I don't know, what do you foresee?
Yeah, I mean, that's the model, and the World Economic Forum openly talks about the new economic system that they want to bring in. I mean, if I've been studying, this type of stuff, the geopolitics, um, the plandopolis of the future, this Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 stuff. Like this is where it's going. There's an article that the World Economic Forum, this Danish, she's from Denmark. Her name is Ida Auken, and she published this article called "It's 2030. I own nothing. I have no privacy, and I've never been happier." And it's basically a propaganda article about the smart city of the future that has been planned for a long time. And in these smart cities that these people want to put you in, you have no control over your movement. You have no freedom. You own nothing. Everything is given to you. Everything is rationed to you, and you basically live inside a freaking Walmart or Target. Like that's what these people want to move it towards. So, that it is what it is. That's openly written about. The World Economic Forum is pushing for this new economic model based on social credits, based on the financialization of nature, and it's a new economic system that's being brought in. And I mean, if enough people actually would inform themselves and build resilient communities and build actual networks of food distribution in their local area, we do stand a chance to not be crowded into smart cities and treated like lab rats. But the long term, it's a lot of this stuff is coming very rapidly now. And I mean, you can read everything. Bertrand Russell wrote about this in the 20s and 30s. The Scientific Outlook by Bertrand Russell talks about everything we're seeing now. It says that all biology must be controlled. Julian Huxley wrote about this in his UNESCO tome, and this is the direction that the World Economic Forum and the global elite want to push it. So, you read The Brave New World is essentially the model, and Huxley was a part of a major eugenics family. His father was T.H. Huxley. His brother was Julian Huxley, who started UNESCO. Julian Huxley also wrote all about eugenics and about the need for racial hygiene and for control of biology and control of all systems of production, including human reproduction. And that is something that is being planned for us. It doesn't have to go that way. You're going to see a lot of people who are going to move into rural areas and going to, not accept, full biometric tracking and control of all their movement and stuff. But it's going to be difficult for them.
That's what I'm wondering. I did just read Brave New World, by the way. It really opens your mind. But like, what's the point, do you think, where people say enough's enough?
Because if you boil a lobster real slow,
exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing. So
because like even with Alexa, like I'm very cognizant of like I don't want to be a big part of this, but we still have an Alexa in the kitchen, and we're like, it hears all our conversations.
Alexa to play music this morning
while
you danced with Theo.
Yeah, if I really lived what I thought and didn't just take the easiest path of least resistance, I wouldn't have an Alexa in the kitchen, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's like
the problem is most people will cheer this on. People can be social engineered into not just accepting the most vile of conditions, but demanding beg for it, right? Yeah. And you see people. I'm watching the chat right now, and there's people in here begging for it, right? So people, when they're confronted with reality, what do they do very often? They just call people names. They'll try to discredit them. They'll try to dehumanize them, and name calling and say, "Oh, this is ridiculous." But most people are not. They're not aware of this because they barely read anyways. They're just sitting around watching TV, taking the social engineering that comes through the television, and their worldview is essentially built by the very technocrats that are writing about the need to, we need to get rid of all these useless eaters and we need to control them like lab rats. So unfortunately, many people will just go along with it. But that doesn't mean like we're all doomed, right? Like, I don't think this is it's like the world is like about to end or anything. It's just, there's a new system being brought in. It's a system that's much more dehumanizing and very, people's freedoms will be gradually taken from them, and they'll beg for those freedoms to be taken from them. That's what we see right now. Right?
I guess the thing that's a little alarming to me is usually when you have like an unplanned for crisis out of nowhere, like out of left field, it's sort of like a unifying incident.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case anymore. It's more dividing. Like everyone has their own thing. Like the vegans say this wouldn't have happened if we didn't eat meat. The carnivores are like, if you have better, I don't even know what the carnivore argument is. And then you got like the Democrats, Republicans, everyone like weaponizes the thing that comes out of left field now. But it used to be like we all got together, we're all humans. And it doesn't seem to go that way anymore. It's a little
I don't know if it really did used to be like that. I think you've always had tribes, you've always had factions, you've always had, throughout human history, it's kind of infighting, stuff like that. But I think, you have a lot of confusion, you get a lot of chaos. But if you read like Zbigniew Brzezinski, who his daughter was Mika Brzezinski, who I think she might still be on MSNBC. But Zbigniew Brzezinski died a few years back. He was a advisor to Obama. He
oh, you cut out. Uh-oh. We lost. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Now I'm back. Okay. So Zbigniew Brzezinski wrote this book about Between Two Ages, the Technotronic Era. He also wrote The Grand Chessboard. There are people in the managerial class who plan for crises like this and understand how to utilize behaviorism and essentially the scientific control of human beings, and they plan for these crises, right? So whether a crisis comes about naturally or is engineered, it doesn't really matter, because the solution to the crisis is already plotted for you, right? So that's one thing that's difficult for people to reconcile with, is when you have the Rockefeller Foundation running in 2010, running a simulation and publish a paper about a pandemic situation, right? Breakout of a pandemic and what the response would need to be by governments, and mapping out several different possible routes. And one of them, they called it the lockstep route. And a lot of people are talking about this document now because it shows exactly what you see now, right? Tighter government control, more surveillance, justified loss of liberties and freedoms, and laws being passed to control biology, control human movement, of course, for the greater good, right? So we saw this after 9/11, the Patriot Act was just going to be temporary, right? Oh, it's just temporary. We just got to get this terrorism under control, and then you're going to get your civil rights back. Don't you worry. What happened? No, the Patriot Act's still there, right? So very, very hard to get governments to relinquish control after they have it. So I think the slow boil thing, it makes it very difficult for people to react to. And when people are so caught up in basically just trying to get by, most of us don't have time or desire to study history or to really think about things further than like the tip of our nose, right? And that's, I think it's just the nature of the world we live in. I think there's good and evil, and once people realize that, I think
we lost him. We got a $5 donation from Hans. He says, the search for truth nutritionally leads to many other kinds.
Kudos,
Casey, Tristan, you're out. We got a couple other donations too. I didn't shout them out. There was no questions or anything though. Someone says, you guys are awesome. Love your channel. Got a $10 donation from Iris Chavez. Tristan, you're back.
Cool. Yeah, I'm back.
So I guess just to kind of wind down here, I do know there's a lot more people nowadays, they're making like the anti-vegan videos. And I wonder, like, what do you think is the best way to get through?
Or is there a way to get through?
Yeah, or is there a way? And is he like anti-vegan sort of thing? Is that doing any good? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
you do it, so obviously I think there's maybe a little good to it.
Yeah,
those are funny though too.
Yeah,
I have fun with it, right? So I think what we started doing a couple of years ago is kind of just building a bridge to these vegans. It's like there's so many of them that were leaving the movement. So many of these vegans on YouTube who are getting shamed for coming out and saying, I ate some eggs and I felt better and now I'm not vegan anymore. So, I mean, what we try to do is just kind of poke fun at the whole thing, but while also offering a platform for these ex-vegans to come out. So like 2018 and 2019, we saw tons of these prominent ex-vegans, and a lot of them came on our stream and basically just let them tell their story and kind of empathize with them a little bit. As far as like anti-vegan stuff, I mean, well, the whole vegan movement is based around them pushing their ideology on everybody else and essentially trying to legislate and force their ideology on the world. I mean, luckily for the vegans, they have from the Davos elite, the World Economic Forum, a lot of these other huge economic entities that are behind their movement now and pushing for planetary dietary guidelines, right? Like the Wellcome Trust, which is this giant pharmaceutical trust out of the UK, funded the Eat Lancet Commission, which is pushing for planetary dietary guidelines. And
I didn't know that. They want planetary dietary guidelines now?
Yeah, the UN and the WHO are also getting behind this. The WHO is run
What are we talking? Like, what are the guidelines going to be?
Less than 5? It's like you get like a bite of meat per day or something like that. Something crazy.
Is this just purely like carbon emission based?
Yeah, it's like, this is a sustainable look. If we just quantify and we do this magic calculus on how many greenhouse gases are emitted, this totally unscientific.
Human health is never really factored into these.
No, and neither is like actually it's not realistic at all the way they're measuring it. They're labeling carbon dioxide an environmental toxin when there's a carbon cycle. There's a carbon cycle. Carbon comes in and out of the ocean, comes in and out of the soil, right? So animals can be used to build carbonous soil and to put carbon into the soil. So yeah, you've got, the Eat Lancet committee run by this billionaire woman, forget her name, but then also the Wellcome Trust is behind this. The World Business Council for Sustainable Development includes Google, Bayer, Monsanto, Michelin, BP, Shell, right? This is the World Business Council on Sustainable Development. They're pushing for the Sustainable Development Goals, which are all about quantifying all our livestock, all our sources of food, and all our emissions, namely your exhalations, as environmental toxins, right? So, and then taxing them and bringing in a new financial system based on the World Economic Forum's model, based on the communist Chinese system of social credits, right? All tracked like freaking the Black Mirror episode through cell phones and through technology, right? This is happening right before our eyes. This is not made up, right? This is happening right now. So they are pushing for planetary dietary guidelines as well. And so the vegans, they do have that behind them. But we have, the reality of the necessity of animal foods and the truth behind us. So I think, I think the ex-vegan, anti-vegan thing is pretty important. We do need to push back because if everybody just lays down and pretends, a lot of people are like, why do you even care, man? What does it matter? Like, just let them do what they're doing, man. Let them do their thing. It's like, no, these are people that they say that meat is murder. They want to legislate you out of existence. They want to genocide rural people and remove your ability to feed your family off of your own land with food that you produce, right? This is what they're pushing for. These vegans are pushing for banning meat. They want it illegal. The main source of nutrition that I feed my family, they want to make that illegal. I'm not just going to lay down and think, oh, just do your own thing, bro. While somebody comes into your house and takes your children's food and takes everything from under your feet. So I think it's very, very important to push back against this. The WHO, people need to look into this guy, Tedros, who's the chief, what do they call him? The Secretary General, I think, or something like that, of the WHO, the World Health Organization. 30% of their income comes from communist China. Much of their income also comes from foundations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation. People need to look into these people. This guy, Tedros, who runs the WHO, he has no medical background at all. No medical background at all. And these people have declared meat to be unhealthy and said that we should all eat plant-based diets. Tedros is also from a revolutionary, violent Marxist group out of Ethiopia, communist revolutionaries, violent revolutionaries. And he's been involved in the cover-up of cholera outbreaks and all sorts of craziness, right? So people aren't really using critical thinking much these days, unfortunately. And but if you look into some of these international organizations and who's behind them, it's a lot of these same big money interests that tend to push these agendas, and they're set to gain a lot of power and a lot of economic control through the imposition of things like planetary dietary guidelines, removing your ability to produce your own food, taxing your way of life out of existence. And that's what we're dealing with. So it's like, yes, it's effective. Yes, it's important. Yeah, it's an uphill battle. Yeah, it's difficult. But hey, what things worth doing aren't difficult, right? Like a lot of people trying to lose body fat, a lot of people trying to get healthy. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to cut off the junk food. It's hard to get off the seed oils, the processed foods, and the sugars. But look how good you feel when you do, right? So it's like our whole way of life is really directly under the gun right now. You know, the way we live with our families, the way rural people, poor communities, indigenous communities who rely on animal foods, they are under assault globally. And that assault comes behind a smiley face with a nice suit and tie and a nice, unassuming, effeminate way of going about it, like Bill Gates. You know, if you just talk like this and you talk about genociding people and taking white people's rights and you act like this is necessary because the experts say we have to do this to save the world, people will listen to you if you clasp your hands and talk like a woman and you kind of bend over and look nerdy. People will think you're unassuming and that you're not a dangerous psychopath. But there's a lot going on, like the Bill Gates impression. And if we just, you know, improve reproductive health services and get rid of more babies, we can improve the lifespan of people. It's like, you know, we're getting sold a bed of lies to sleep in. And I think it's time for people to wake up. And I think certain people are. And that doesn't take everybody. Not everybody's got to understand bigger picture stuff, but I think the ability to feed our families off our own land, the ability to procure good food in our local environment, these are our rights. And our rights aren't given to us by technocrats. Our rights aren't given to us by Ted Ross at the WHO or the CDC or Bill Gates or the Rockefeller Foundation. Our rights are not given to us by them. I believe our rights are given to us by God. And, you know, so we've got an uphill battle. We got the families under attack. Their ways of life are under attack. And I think it is time for people to push back a little bit and push back a lot against this vegan agenda, this, you know, pushing kibble on you, pushing processed, refined foods shipped from all over the world, subsidized with government money. Your tax money is going into this stuff, into feeding corn and soy to the world, when we should be eating quality animal foods grown locally. So it's something we all got to consider. And I definitely will not stop pushing back against the whole plant-based food takeover agenda, because it directly affects my life, my children's life, and my future, and all of ours. So that's what it is. So there's people in the chat. I see some lemmings and up in the chat who just have insults to say when they hear this stuff, right? So you guys.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that's Tristan, guys. He has a YouTube channel. I'm sure most of you guys know, Primal Edge Health. Oh my. And he's got the cookbooks. This is my favorite one, the Carnivore cookbook. Just because a lot of you, one of the questions we were going to get to, we didn't have a ton of time for, was making organ meats taste good. I guess we touched on it a little bit. But a lot of good organ meat recipes in here.
And like, do you do raw dairy, right? So do you have like kefir and stuff as well? Awesome. Because I know Matt.
Yeah. In the Carnivore cookbook, we include even some like carnivore carbohydrates, right? So there's even a couple recipes that include honey in there. The Carnivore cookbook's all animal foods. And the Ketogenic Edge cookbook is really cool too, for those who are more into some like, you know, omnivorous keto diet. That one's got a whole section on organ meats. You guys can find more at primaledgehealth.com. Really appreciate you guys having me on. Oh, the next Keto and Carnivore Collective, our group coaching, starting in about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
And you guys can sign up for that at primaledgehealth.com as well. And that's it, guys. It's time to get on with our days, and I really appreciate you having me on and giving me a platform to speak to your audience. And I appreciate the audience over there, even the ones who are triggered and upset and have nothing but insults. I love it.
There's always some.
Yeah.
There's always some. Exactly.
And
they're always the same ones, and they follow me on every platform. They show up in every chat. So I know you're my biggest fans anyways, guys. So we'll keep on speaking the truth.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
See ya. Okay, guys, that's the interview with Tristan. Just check him out. As always, Primal Edge Health. He has a lot of good videos on there. He does a lot of live streams and stuff too. A lot of interviews, just like we just did with him.
And he could just I love listening. I could just listen to him all day. Because he's just full of knowledge.
It's the entertainment he brings along that's like a key.
But like he retains everything he reads, which blows my mind. Because like the majority of us read something, you have to read it like 3 times, right? In order to retain about like 50% of it. Yeah. He retains 100% every time.
Like I've listened to the George Carlin. Is it George? I always get confused. It's either Dan or George Carlin. His podcast, like 4 times through, and then I finally get it, and then I tell you the stories.
Yeah. So.
And Theo actually made it through the entire podcast.
So we didn't really get to bring him on. I feel like Tristan would have had a lot of good insight on baby stuff. We have to bring Tristan back for sure.
Yeah, we'll have him back. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We're going to have a video coming later today, too. Quarantine grocery shopping.